Check, check, check. Check, check. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes. No, you don't have it yet, no. Check, 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 check,
Give it a second.
check, check. It's been on for a minute.
Speak.
Speak, 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 speak.
Hello.
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2.
Testing. I don't
Bill,
think mine's
check
working.
yours.
Hello, hello.
Test, test.
Test,
Test,
test, test,
test,
test, test, test, test, test,
Test,
test.
test,
Left.
test.
Yeah, well, it may just
Mine
be
does not
test.
appear to be
Test,
working.
test.
Test, test.
Yeah,
Test,
Test,
test.
test.
if you'll do that.
You guys
and then
hearing me?
I'll do
Yes.
some things on my end.
Everything's on.
I'm sorry.
I said, if you'll reach out to them, I'll do some things on my end to gather some support
Okay.
for that.
Check 1, 2. Turn up really loud for a second. Really loud.
I think it blew
All
up.
of these things, which would have been so easy had we gone another round.
Did anything change back here? Because nothing's
Everyone is
changed.
complaining
Tap that
about.
again, Carol.
We can be loud.
You know,
Test, 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 test.
the amp is not coming on.
Oh, my.
Maybe so. Yeah, the amp is not coming on. There it is. You did. Maybe. We'll find out in a second. All right. Yeah.
My God.
I
Wowza.
think it's your attention.
All right. All right. Now it's working.
Test, test, test.
Something was
Test.
unplugged.
Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Test,
Okay.
test.
Can't hear you,
Test.
Bob.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn Bob up. Bob is a soft-spoken and carries a big stick. All right, speak, Bob.
Test, test,
test,
test,
test,
test, test, test, test, test,
Oh, there we go.
test, test.
It's still, part of it's also a little bit far away from your ear.
Test, test.
Test, test.
That's better. All right, let's start.
All right.
Test, 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 test.
Everyone ready?
Yes.
Think so.
All right, we call to order the work session, Friday, January 25, 2019. And we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll have a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The camera is also red. Is it supposed to be green or red?
It's red. It's recording, yeah. Sorry.
Red is always,
Red is good. I know, that thing's backwards for most things. Carol, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Amy Speak,
Here.
Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Here?
Councilmember Susanna Murdoch is absent. Councilmember Robert Spalding.
Here.
Mayor Dan Ingram.
Here. Susanna will be here about 1. We decided to go ahead and start. Citizens' opportunity to address the council. Come on. You're the next contestant.
Hi, Claire Greisinger, 40 Carriage Hill. Just want to thank whoever put these resolutions. This just happens to be the year 2017 on the website. They are listed by date that they were passed, and this is for Like I said, this year, 2017, and you can just run your finger down, find any resolution that you are looking for instead of having to be clicking all through those. So I don't know who put this on here. It's on there for other years also, but would like to thank whoever that is. Don't know who it is.
Be Cher.
That would be.
It would be Cher. Cheese biscuits for Cher. Anyone else? Going. All right, that being said, we move on to resolutions. First resolution. A resolution of the Signal Mountain Town Council authorizing additional funds in an amount not to exceed $30,000 for the contract with Rain Brothers, Inc. for renovations and repairs to the Mountain Arts Community Center.
This is the scenario we discussed at the last regular meeting. We've got the plans approved through the state. They are requiring some additional sidewalk being put in. We're having to do some alterations in what's now the kitchen to provide additional egress. We've also looked at some of the work that we previously discussed and see what could be deleted. The firewall can come out with the rear of the building being sprinkled and so forth. So when it's all said and done with deducts and additional work, we're looking at $27,637.14. So to provide a little bit of leeway and simplicity as well, ask for an authorization not to exceed $30,000, and this should get us to completion of the project to the point that the building as a whole can be opened and utilized.
And we talked at the regular council meeting about doing this in the work session because
Right.
it needs to happen so we can progress.
We got the estimates and everything right ahead of that meeting, so we went ahead and discussed it at the work session, but I asked council to consider going ahead and improving it at this meeting so that we can move forward.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Motion and a second. Discussion?
Yeah, when is this going to, or has the timeline for the MAC to be finished been expanded as far as all this work?
Yes, it will likely be late April, maybe into May. The main thing is the sprinkler contractor. We're hoping they're erring on the side of caution and the work moves faster, but having it completed and the building as a whole open ahead of our Centennial is looking problematic at this point.
There's a lot more we could talk about the MAC, but I think for now, this is one of the things that has to be done, so.
So can you just explain a little bit further? This wasn't budgeted for, right, in our
No.
budget last year?
No.
So where are these funds coming from?
We have funds in capital projects that we can pull from, and we will discuss that in a little more detail later in the meeting. But right now, with other projects that haven't been done, we can move forward with this and make budget adjustments.
Okay. And then what does this bring our total to of dollars invested in the MAC?
Let me see if I have that. And I'll glance over at Sam and see if he has any. We're approaching 600,000, I believe, is where will be a reasonable ballpark.
Okay.
I don't have that sheet with me.
I think it's always appropriate when we talk about the total we're spending on an asset, to talk about the value of the asset as well. And I don't know that we've ever had it appraised, but have we?
We have.
And
Seems to me, because we have it appraised for insurance purposes.
Okay.
And it seems to me the appraisal is about somewhere in that range.
Okay.
About 2 million? So for insurance purposes,
Right.
2 million, which would probably be different than a sale.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's, it's a matter of taking care of an asset that's worth a couple million that would become worth less if, the building wasn't used, so.
Well, I'm not arguing, I'm just
No, I
wanting to know
just
the
think it's good
total.
to, yeah. All right, any other discussion? Just, again, from just a 30,000-foot level, just to get it on the record here, this sprinkles the back. Where they are right now is they haven't done the concrete and finished the drainage behind the auditorium yet.
Correct.
And this is all being held up based on this, so that they can start working again.
No.
I
They,
thought-
they have the ability to work on that. I've already signed change orders that would allow that work to be going. The issue they've had for the last several weeks is weather. Because the drainage is so poor back there. Every time we get a day of rain, if it were to rain one day, their estimate is they push them back 5 days because they have to wait for all that to dry out. And we haven't gone 5 days without a day of rain in weeks and weeks, so they just can't get in there to get the work done. And until they get that work done in the back and ensure that it's been sealed and we're not getting the infiltration that we had before, they don't want to put the floor back in the auditorium because that's how they can view what's going on. So everything's dependent on, not everything, a lot of the steps are dependent on other steps, and the main thing is getting that rear wall finished, getting the drainage in, and trying to stop the water infiltration. That's what's being held up by the weather we've had over the last several weeks.
Okay. Will the operation of the MAC in the back part of the building be able to continue, or do we anticipate that when they're full-blown in there with Raines Brothers, or with the sprinkler contractor in there, is there a chance that everything will have to stop?
We don't anticipate that. There will probably be some struggles in scheduling, but they've assured us they'll work with us as much as possible. Most of the work will be overhead. So we should be able to operate. There may be some challenges involved, but we don't anticipate having to close completely for any period.
And just to ask another obvious question that I know the answer to, but to get it out on the table, that if the building is done, all the sprinkler contracts and all that, all the sprinkler work done, which it mostly is in the front part of the building, but the back part isn't done, they can't start to use the front part of the building until they get an occupancy certificate for the entire building. So that's kind of what this,
The state will not release utilization of the front of the building till the full project's done.
right. So that's where we are. Everybody ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 4-0. Next, we have a resolution approving the terms of the engagement letter for town attorney services and appointing Harry R. Cash as town attorney for the town of Sligo Mountain, effective February 1, 2019.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? We've all gone through this and done, had our vote and all that. I don't see, this is a pretty simple agreement here, and it doesn't lay out, specific expectations. And, or is there other paperwork associated with this as far as?
This letter
The
here.
But this is
engagement.
his letter to
Yeah.
us.
Right, that is what you are approving and accepting by this resolution.
Right. But as far as our expectations of Harry, for instance, does it say anywhere that we want timesheets?
It says that they will provide monthly billing, which is a monthly timesheet.
Monthly billing is a timesheet?
Yes. And we do have the document to which the responses were made that lay out the meetings that they need to attend and all of those functions. So that is all part of this process. And I suppose we could ask Mr. Cash to stipulate that's what the engagement letter is to involve, but
Did we do that for Phil? I think,
But we also didn't get timesheets. The town got timesheets for a while and then stopped getting timesheets.
I'll be glad to address that. Well, what I've proposed in.
If you don't mind, come to the table.
What I said is that we will provide monthly billing statements. Those billing statements will have daily entries and the amount of time spent on those days. So you won't have the time sheets themselves, but every bill will have how much time I spent for Signal Mountain on any particular day. So every month you will be able to see how much time I spent that month.
Okay.
And as far as my obligations, the request for qualifications provided what I would be expected to do, and I accepted that. I accepted those terms when I sent my response to the request for qualifications.
Right.
thank you.
Anybody else have questions? It's now or?
Okay, let's vote.
yeah, ask him now before he goes on the clock.
Exactly, yeah. It doesn't cost us right now. All right, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you. And welcome.
We made a good choice.
I think so. Hope so.
I do too.
All right. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the town manager to execute a water purchase agreement extension with Tennessee American Water Company for a term of 12 months, beginning February 1st, 2019 through February 1st, 2020. Which retains the water purchase rate of 10344 per 100 cubic feet. So, a little bit of explanation.
Sure.
Board.
Originally, Tennessee American had forwarded proposed contract language, and it was significantly different than we'd had in the past. In speaking with them, they indicated that largely that was due to the proposition of us having an interconnection with Walden and the need to protect the integrity of their system, which seemed reasonable, but there were some of the details of the language were concerning. We had discussion on that. And following that meeting, the mayor and I scheduled a meeting with representative from Tennessee American, discussed it with them, expressed our concerns. They then submitted some revised language. After getting that and reviewing it, I requested some additional revisions, which they agreed to, and just got this back a day or so ago, the need to revise the agenda and get it on there, because I didn't have the final draft. But we do now. And basically, we've dropped, the proposal was for a 3-year term. We've dropped that to a year, since we're still in the process of making some other decisions relative to the system. The provision that they would be our sole supplier is restricted only to the term of this contract. Previously it said all current and future sales would be from them, and so it's only relative to this contract term. And I got them to expand the definition of emergency circumstances so that prior, the only thing they would recognize as an emergency is if they couldn't deliver water to us. But we know they deliver that to the foot of the mountain. So if something were to fail at our pump station or our main distribution line, that would have the same effect. So we included that language as well. So I think for the period of this coming year, as we work through some final decisions relative to the system, this puts us in a pretty good position. So I present it for council's consideration.
This is closer to the extension that we've done year after year.
Correct.
And you guys did a great job negotiating away those objectionable provisions.
Thank you. And they were
It was easy.
good to work with. We understood their positions, and again, the need to protect the integrity of their system was, as much as anything, what was driving some of their concerns. As we explained what our concerns were, it was pretty easy to come to terms on where we needed to be.
Do we have a motion?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries 4-0. All right, we move into ordinances now. And we have 3 to deal with, and all 3 of these are second readings, so we'll read them and get a cursory overview and see if there's any new discussion or anybody's had any citizens raise other questions. An ordinance to amend Title 11, Chapter 5 of the Town of Signal Mountain Municipal Code entitled Firearms, Weapons, and Missiles. Probably, since this is a second reading, probably do need to read the resolution number, huh?
Ordinance number.
This is
Ordinance number.
2019-02.
There it is. All right, just a quick overview, boy.
Sure. I think it was back in November, we had questions come up at a meeting. Citizens had voiced concerns about coyotes and the mixed information they were getting from our police officers and TWRA. TWRA was telling them they should shoot them. Our officers were telling them they could not do that because you can't discharge a firearm in the town. I was asked to research those issues, and in as much of a nutshell as possible, the state of Tennessee has preempted all areas of law relative to firearms. That was originally rather limited. Attorney General's opinion that said, okay, there are certain things that municipalities still can regulate. Pretty much immediately thereafter, the state then preempted the entire field of firearms, so that removed that possibility. In addition to that, there's also a constitutional amendment a few years ago to the Tennessee Constitution that guaranteed citizens the right to hunt. So that leaves the municipality with the proposition of complying with state law and deciding what's to be done on our property. So, and I think a very important point is this ordinance does not, we're not doing anything that allows people to hunt or allows people to shoot firearms. We're recognizing that the state has full authority over all of that, and we're simply saying that citizens must comply with state law, but we are prohibiting hunting on town property. We do have the right to do that. So basically this, in effect, aligns our ordinance with state law. I meant that to be a little shorter, but it's kind of hard to get it all in there.
You left out the part about coyotes can still hunt roadrunners.
This is true.
It didn't change. All right, so it's a second reading. We don't need a motion. We have
Motion to approve.
Did you, oh, second. I was going to ask for a discussion if our new attorney could weigh in on his thoughts on anything about this ordinance.
Well, I have to admit, I haven't researched it in great detail, but I mean, the state law simply says we can't, the municipality, Town of Signal Mountain, or any municipality can overrule state law. State law preempts whatever ordinance we have approved. So as long as we're complying with state law and not passing an ordinance or changing our ordinance to conflict with that, we're fine, and I don't think that's the case. I think we're fine with this ordinance.
And you noted that Suzanne is here. Hello.
Sorry.
That's all right. We have to work. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 5-0.
That actually is a good point. This is a good point. You might want to just make a note of it for the recorded record.
Yeah, so at 12:55, Susanna Murdoch appeared from the school. So we're all in attendance. Next, we have, and let's get the ordinance number. Ordinance number 2019-3. It's an ordinance to amend Title I, Chapter 1, Section 1-101 of the Town of Signal Mountain Municipal Code in reference, nope, that's the wrong one. Are they out of order?
Park regulations, this one.
Let me use that. How in the world? I think I shuffled my own papers before we start. What's the number on this one, Carol?
This one should be 2019-03.
It is 03, okay. All right. An ordinance to amend the Signal Mountain Municipal Code, Title 20, Chapter 5, entitled Signal Mountain Park Regulations and Guidelines.
This came from the same discussion. The laws relative to handgun carry permits and what is and isn't allowed municipal properties has evolved fairly regularly over the last few years, and it came to light that we did have some inappropriate signage on some of our parks. While we can prevent hunting in our parks, we cannot prevent a licensed handgun carry permit carrier to carry in the parks, with some exceptions, such as if there is an organized school event there and children are present. So this basically, again, brings us in line with state law and incorporates some of the same language from the prior ordinance.
So the second reading, do we have a motion?
Motion.
I feel like we ought to be talking about it, but we've talked about it a lot, but we've gone over all this stuff. It's something we have to do, and it's just bringing us into code. So any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Now we move to ordinance number 2019-4. This is an ordinance to amend Title I, Chapter 1, Section 1-101 of the Town of Signal Mountain Municipal Code in reference to the time and place of council meetings. That's self-explanatory.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So a motion and a second. Has anyone heard anything from folks saying?
No. It says 6 o'clock. Is it 6:30 that we're,
6
it's,
is what we talked about.
6 is what we voted on.
so we bumped it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's even the only minor complaint I've seen is that it's a little harder, but it's 30 minutes harder. And yeah.
Well, this is not in stone either. I mean, we can, actually, we can't discuss it. There's a motion. Have we had a
Yeah,
second?
we can discuss.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry. But, I mean, we can try this and go back, and if we get a lot of complaints and 6 o'clock becomes a problem, we can change it, is kind of my thought process. I mean, we may find that we move it to evening meetings and we have the same amount of people and we move back to the daytime. So don't you feel like this is a kind of just a trial?
Sure, I mean, it's, I've had not a single person say they don't think it's a good idea.
I haven't
I've
either.
heard nothing but positive
Yeah.
feedback.
All right, any other discussion? Bob, does 6 mess with your work time?
I mean, in some respects, but not to the point I can't make amends.
It's easier than the middle of the day, I bet. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Carries 5-0. Okay, we're going to move into the discussion portion of our meeting now, and first is the Centennial budget, and if Snowda Hendricks would like to go ahead and come to the table and say your name and address into the mic. And, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Snowda.
Snowda, S-N-O-D-A, Hendricks, H-E-N-D-R-I-C-K.
Mayor.
31 Mountain Orchard.
Do we have any extras of these?
We do.
We do.
There's
There's,
2 extras here. Did
Do
you
we
need
have
one?
something we can pass to the audience?
I brought some, and Floyd has
There are a
some
few.
as well, so we do have some extra. I've got them.
Yeah. Thanks, Sherry. So,
Thank you.
just to pull this into what we're doing, Snowda is actively organizing. We all know that the personnel has changed somewhat. And even as we've narrowed down to who's putting a definite plan together, there's still some things that are up in the air that we're trying to figure out. Like the MAC thing, we had to figure out what's going to happen with that play. And that's, I guess, let's start from there, unless there's anything you need to add, Boyd.
No, I'll follow up once she's,
I'll go ahead and do my presentation. Okay, I'm in charge of the Centennial Celebration Kickoff, which is April the 4th, 4 to 7 at the Alexian Inn. The program itself will be 6 to 7. Our representative from Alexian is Charles McCloy. He couldn't be here today, but he's been great to work with. The focus of this event is to kick off the Centennial celebration for the year, as well as to sort of, the theme is sort of the past, the present, and the future. The History Committee and the Genealogy Society will have photo exhibits, all the historic exhibits there at the end. We're hoping to have musicians from the high school to play. We have gotten almost the majority of the refreshments donated. We will be serving dessert and punch. I've rented 150 chairs from the Chattanooga tent and on event planning and let's see if there's anything else. So that's the gist of the program. And then the things that I need from the town are the sound system, the American flag, and the Tennessee flag. And if I could have those delivered on Wednesday, I'll be setting up on Wednesday and then picked back up on Friday. So I need to coordinate who I need to talk to about that. And we have no idea how many to plan for. We could have 50, we could have 200. But I only have room for about 150 chairs. There will be porch furniture on the porch of the Alexian Inn, so we have plenty of room there as well. There'll be plenty of standing room. But what I need from y'all to start out with is the program. I have a proposed program, and I want to work with y'all on the program. Dan is going to MC. I've asked him to do that. The Alexian Executive Director, Terry Tompkins, has asked to speak. He just wants to speak for 1 minute and do a welcome. One of the Alexian brothers would also like to do a welcome. Then we're going to have the invocation by Stacy Seals and also do the Pledge of Allegiance. Ken Holloway has been asked to do a song that he wrote about the Centennial. And then we'll have speakers, and we would like your input. We would really like the council to decide on who you want to speak. You can have more than one person, whenever you want. And then we'll have a closing. All right. The other things I need from y'all, I need a list of VIPs and their addresses. If I could have this list by the 18th of February, and this is the VIPs, whoever you would like to invite to this ceremony or event. I'm going to have these invitations printed by web code. I will address them, but you have to get the addresses to me and the list by the 18th. And I also need to know how you want these worded and who the RSVP goes to. And I want to get these mailed out by March the 4th, and the town has agreed to pay for the postage. All right. So the next item is decision about the speakers. We need to figure out, y'all need to decide who you want to speak, who asked those individuals to speak, and we need that nailed down by March the 4th. And we would like to print a program. We're going to do that in-house here at the town. I want approximately 200 programs and like to have that printed by the 15th. I had met with Boyd and we talked about using a shuttle service that Alexian can do because of parking issues there at the end. And Alexian can do the shuttle service for $25 an hour per van. I think we would only need one van. And when I talked to Boyd, we kind of decided, since it's probably not going to be a huge number attending, we would not have a shuttle service for that particular. We were thinking not to have it. But Alexian wants us to revisit that and reconsider. They really, parking is a premium there. It's even tight for their employees. And my mother-in-law was there for 2 years. It's hard to find parking space there. So they want us to reconsider having a shuttle service. So we'd have to make arrangements with a nearby church if we wanted to do that. So if y'all would look at that again. So that is everything in a nutshell. Any comments, any questions, any recommendations? Anything else you want? You want something different in the program? I mean, I'll do it. You just tell me what you want.
Sure. So thanks for a very concise and to-the-point program. That's wonderful. Boyd, do you want to make a statement now, or should we start addressing some of our concerns?
No, let's go ahead and work through this before I get to the general budget question.
So, I think the obvious question is who has been asked? Has anyone been asked?
Yes, we did ask Bob Corker because there was someone on the committee that is good friends with him and he cannot do it. That's the only person that we have asked. And after that, I was like, okay, let the council decide.
I think this is a bit of not really complaining, but it's a bit of a surprise to us because we sort of thought all that was being done,
Well,
which is okay.
I took over
yeah.
in December.
Right.
And nothing had been done
Okay.
at all.
And this is not a request for that to be done right now.
Okay.
You can, this is just here's where we are and these are the things that we need to know.
Yeah, so we're not.
The dates, we need to get this locked down. So when I took over in December, nothing had been done except the date, and there was a lot of talk, and I basically wiped the slate clean and said, this is what we're doing. And that's what we do.
Well, I'll toss just in general, I think all past employees, past staff, town staff, and council members should be invited to that, should get an invitation. People.
You want written invitations for them?
Well, you were talking about people that we invite, I think.
Yes.
Yes, written.
Written.
Yeah, written
Yeah,
invitation
written.
for,
You give me the list and addresses, then I'll get them printed.
right, or at least some of them, I don't know.
I think, yeah, we can work on that.
You know what I mean by that. But folks if you have a street named after you, you should be invited to this.
Right, and
For sure.
I need that list by the 18th of February, complete.
I want to add Bo Watson and Patsy Hazel.
Yes.
If you want, if you'll each just email me any of the
And Chip.
things you want, and then obviously we'll get duplicates and triplicates, but that's fine. That's how we have the best shot of making sure we think of everybody. So if you'll just email me your list, I'll meld those and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
I will also note that Alexian also has a list they wanted to invite as well. Do y'all have a problem with that? Okay.
I
Can't
don't
imagine
see-
why, but
Alexian really wants to use this to promote and to market with and to bring attention to Alexian. And they really have worked hard. The inn was not in great condition. They're repainting. They did some refurbishing. They're doing everything we've asked them to do. They're not charging us rent. And they've tried really hard to make this successful.
I was at a presentation there last week, and they want to have a more active face in the community in general, so it's a good opportunity for us to do that.
I want to thank Snowden for stepping in to fill the holes that were in that committee, so thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
You bet, yeah.
Great job, too, by the way.
Shuttle service?
I had
Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
thought, just as part of this is just like a random idea, but I've thought about it. I thought about it a while ago, and then it kind of popped back in my head. I have no idea how to organize anything like this, but I was thinking it might be kind of fun if we could, and I don't know who these people would be, but kind of have like a Hall of Fame kind of people, people who've contributed to the quality of life of Signal Mountain in some measurable kind of way. I don't know if people could be nominated from the community.
And recognized at this
But recognize,
event.
yeah.
I like your idea.
And I think we could have an artist create some kind of something that we could give them to sort of recognize them for their contributions to the character of our community. I think that might be a way to kind of arouse some interest by the public
Right. I think
and by
it's a
different
great
groups.
idea.
And it could be in different categories. It doesn't have to be just one person. It could be somebody who's contributed to the arts, somebody who's contributed to sports and athletics, or, the things that make Signal Mountain special.
Yeah, will you two communicate on that and
Yes,
put some
I will.
flesh on
I'd be
that?
happy to work with you on
I'll
that.
work with you on that, because I think that's a great idea.
Of the things that you listed, shuttle service, what about, of course, we don't know if the street will be done. There's a lot of street parking on James there.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about that, Sam and Boyd and Paul and I met, we thought, we do this at Easter egg hunts and et cetera, and it just works out, and it's only for 3 hours. And I'm hoping that some people will just, especially from that area, will walk. I'm hoping the weather will be nice. I've got plans, because the weather can be really iffy that time of year, and that's why we moved everything inside. I think originally they were thinking of having all this outside, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's usually too cold. So we thought it would be okay not to have the shuttle service, but Alexia's perspective is they don't want those cars everywhere because it's hard for their employees to get in and out.
Right, I mean, we could say parking's on the street, and I think Alexian also, with their community outreach, maybe if they arranged with some of the churches,
I don't know if that's
would
their
we need to do that?
responsibility or
I mean, I think
ours.
that's what they were requesting, is it probably the Presbyterian would be the most obvious, is to use their parking lots, and then we would rent
Sure.
the shuttles for $25 an hour. Even if we got 2 of them, it's a very minimal expense. Just in our initial discussion, like she said, it was just like, well, they have the Easter egg hunt and the Halloween and the things that are really big draws over there that last for a relatively short period of time.
Did anyone
Those
ask,
things go off.
did we ask about them using theirs, using their bus?
That's what they're talking
So
about.
they charge us to use their
Yeah.
bus, okay.
They'll provide the driver, the van, the gas. We pay them $25 an hour. Some of their shuttles have room for wheelchairs, So there's not a lot of seating, might put 12 in a van.
I'm not opposed to that. We just weren't sure it would really be necessary, but to be safe,
Right. And I think
it wouldn't be a huge expense.
right, and Charles and I think Cindy would coordinate that. That's my understanding.
So the last one that I have to toss in is the sound system. I'll take care of that
Okay.
using Barb, if it's okay if we use the
And
stick, and I'll
I
toss in another.
was planning on putting the musicians on the front porch to the left of, to the right of their front door. So, and then we have the speakers will be inside, so we'll have to discuss, we need a second sound system.
Or if you want them to just be acoustic there, yeah.
Okay, we'll figure that out. So we just need to make sure that that is delivered and set up on Wednesday, because I don't have a truck and I don't want to be responsible. As well as the flags for the Pledge of Allegiance.
You guys take some.
Okay. All right.
Got it?
Was there any additional information that Sam found out about the trolley? Okay.
That,
They had issues with being able to come up and down the mountain, that they really weren't built for being able to use the mountain.
there's more information on it, because evidently there's two different trolleys.
Right.
From two different
Were
places.
you talking about the lookouts, or were you talking about another trolley company?
Offhand, I don't remember which, I don't believe it was the lookout.
And I think there was some follow-up, oh, you were talking one with the lookouts, right, okay. I
Okay.
think that's still being looked at.
That's still looked at, yeah.
Okay. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Any questions about budget that I can answer?
No, not really. I don't think at this point we've gone through most of the stuff that you guys are dealing with. Really, the main question I have for council at this point, there's been a significant evolution in plans. We went from having a large formal dinner and expecting significant contributions, and now we're at a more small-town, I think, appropriate scenario, but also the prospect of significant donations doesn't seem to be coming to fruition either. In the budget, we have $40,000, but that is in anticipation of $20,000 in revenue from donations. So in reality, town funds, we have $20,000 budgeted. So I just wanted to, since there has been such a change in how things really look, and that it does look like we will be shouldering the cost, just wanted to revisit that and see what the council's comfort level was and make sure that we are where we need to be. We're looking at just some of really the larger things are the picnic, which we anticipate will be a few $1,000s. We're still looking at costs on that to get the hamburgers and the hot dogs, and the issue with the town doing it, and the concern I had with the by invitation dinner and all is if we're using tax dollars to do it, our taxpayers as a whole need to be able to participate. So we're looking at the picnic, the town covering the cost of that. The Lions Club has agreed to do the cooking, do something different than the 4th of July. So we're going with the all-American standard hamburger, hot dogs, potato chips, drinks, and basically it'll be a y'all-come affair, and hopefully we get a good turnout. But that will be a cost that the town would bear, and then we're looking at $5,000 to $6,000 for a fireworks display similar to what we would have on the 4th of July. So between those two, I think we're approaching, and the cost for the chairs and just things that we know, we're approaching.
Budget, I think, and we'll be able to keep that under $1,000.
For that event.
I'm sorry?
For that
For
event.
that.
For the event on the 4th,
Right.
and then the parade, and the banners you have.
Right, we have They requested banners to go across the road, which will be about $1,500. Just a variety of things. We're easily getting in above the $10,000 mark at this point.
I think we very much are.
Yeah. So ultimately, we may be fine. Probably going to be fine. But again, since things have changed so much, just wanted to have another discussion about council's feel for budget on the project.
I've worked on lots of special events, and that sounds like a very reasonable amount of money when you're talking about celebrating our community's 100th anniversary, you know. That doesn't raise any red flags for me personally.
The 20,000.
Yeah.
And there'll be some events in the fall as well. So, and that would be included in this very same budget.
So you're not going to like what I'm going to ask, because I think you and I disagree on this.
Okay.
Which is fine, but April and a parade is iffy. It's really iffy weather-wise. We already have a 4th of July parade, and I still wonder why we can't turn that into our Centennial 4th of July parade since it's there. And I know we lose the high school band for that, but it's something that already exists, and we have these things that already take place, and it doesn't potentially have us spend money and then nothing happen.
My personal opinion is I completely agree with you.
Okay.
But I wasn't on the committee when that decision was made. I don't think they even thought about that. Nobody, that didn't occur to anyone. No one thought of that. To focus, I think very much the plan was done by 2 individuals, and they were trying to do April because the town was established in April. And so that was kind of the thinking and the focus, and I think that's why everything was planned for a 10-day period.
It concerns me a little bit that James may not be done by April also, if it continues to rain every 4 days, because that one stopped by rain also.
And we have just assigned a change order, maybe in this week actually, and TDOT signed off on it. It's not a cost change, but it's a change in how we're doing the subgrade stabilization.
Because of the water.
Right. So we're using concrete. I'm sorry?
Does that mean it's going to take longer?
No, the idea is that it will take less time because we have the same situation where weather is holding it up. If you do concrete stabilization, you can do that in wetter environments. So we've basically changed the design for the subgrade, and TDOT has approved that and signed off on it. So hopefully we will be able to move more quickly from here on. So
The committee did decide the rain date for the picnic and the parade would be the 4th of July. But if you want that looked at again, I can take that to the committee. You'll need to tell me what to do. We're looking for guidance from you guys.
Okay.
We're the committee that's working for the town.
I think that you're right to move it to the 4th of July. I mean, I think it would be so fun to have like a big banner. I mean, you got all these people out there anyway, and a Centennial goes on.
It goes on
kind
for
of
the
implies an entire year.
Yeah.
So if we could spread out some of the celebration to different times of the year, it'll kind of, again, I think, draw the community in. It doesn't have to all be consolidated into 1 week. We can kind of spread the fun.
My hesitation in mentioning that was, I think as a council, when you have committees, you have to be careful about jumping into their business. The committees have their things for a reason, but Snowda has also said she is interested in guidance. So I mean, I'm one person, but I like that idea. Bob, you're the chair.
You know, again, this thing has taken many different shapes and timelines, like with the MAC and some other things, to where this is kind of still fluid. So I'm open to suggestions if that's, I like the idea because the whole intent of the committee was to figure out a way of spreading the celebration out over an entire year. And as it's been pointed out, slamming it all into 1 week is good, but we were expecting some other components of the 7 lifestyles to pick up that extra time, and it didn't happen. So having a parade on the 4th is not a bad idea.
And then we don't have the added expense of the fireworks, because fireworks already exist. So there's $5,000 to $7,000 saved right there, right? Because we
Yeah,
contribute
if you
to the
move
Lions.
right. You know, if we were going to move both of those, the parade and the fireworks to the 4th of July, I would suggest maybe it would be in the best interest of the town and the community that we
do the
augment. It wouldn't be just your normal run-of-the-mill 4th of July fireworks. That
Right.
Yeah.
if we're going to combine them, let's make it a little more spectacular.
I like that.
I agree with that.
Has there been any more discussion of moving the location of the fireworks?
Sam had a brief discussion with the president of the club, and we got significant resistance to moving back to the country club. Now, again, that was a brief discussion, and if council has a staunch position one way or the other, we can have additional discussions, but
What, is it because of damage or inconvenience?
well, one of the things was, and again, this was related to the April timeframe, that they were going to be doing a major renovation to the driving range, and that's where they're generally shot from. My thought there is, I don't know why they couldn't be shot from Driver Field, which is right next to the driving range, because we're going to be redoing that field anyway with the upcoming grant. But in addition to that, a concern was that the place gets, and I don't really feel comfortable even paraphrasing because I wasn't in the discussion, but the place in general gets kind of trashed up from the event. But, you know, my position is this, we're not talking about moving it back there for good. We're talking
Right.
about this one specific event because of the historic nature of it, so.
Could we toss into that mix the historic nature of the significance of cows on the golf course? Also could tie into this. I mean, turn this into something that's promoting the country club. I mean, in its role in the formation of this community. I mean, it wasn't the reason the town was formed, but
It was one of the first orders of
it
business.
was one of the first orders of
Yeah.
business was to keep cows off the golf course.
Now, would you also, are you also suggesting to move the picnic or keep the picnic in April?
No, I'm thinking move the whole thing, make that be a big celebration day. We've already got a park, we've got pavilions.
Now, the conflict is the Lions Club does the picnic and sells the barbecue and,
That's a significant fundraiser for them.
and then if the town
Could-
could step in and provide hot dogs and hamburgers, that would have to be worked out. I'm
Is,
just throwing out, I'm playing devil's advocate.
not, but I think yay for them. If we have more people come to them, they make more money and they do good things for the community. I think that's all good.
But we were gonna provide the food free to the community.
We could, like we talked about the fireworks, could we augment that somehow?
That would be more difficult.
Without hurting them, you mean?
Well, it would just be an additional aspect of, we would be donating to them,
That's what you're saying.
which we do with the, there's just mechanisms we have to follow.
But there's other things that we could do besides food, since they're doing food. That we aren't donating to them by promoting an event that makes more people come and spend money with them.
No.
We could provide, I mean, I don't know how you logistically go about this. It's probably, you know, maybe we need to have a separate meeting or something, but like a carnival type atmosphere is what I was imagining that would be at the playground. And
And that's
You've
what we
got
have planned for the April one.
balloon, clown,
We've got
doing
cotton candy
balloons and
machines
cotton candy and, yeah.
And all that coming, planned, that was for that April, but if we were gonna move it to July, we
Yeah.
could just still do the same thing.
Could do the same thing then. April's, how many barbecues do you go to in April?
The average temperature that week on the mountain for the month of April is between 45 and 65. The average chance of rain is 33%. Nightfall
I think we maybe turned it back over to the Centennial. I think
look
we're,
at it this
yeah,
way.
I think,
Yeah.
like, to your point, the guidance is if we can make it work in July, I think we're all in agreement on that. If we can't, but we'll give, and correct me if you disagree, Bob, we'll kind of give you guys the autonomy to work that out and come back with your ideas, and then we can give you more guidance. But I think we're really getting our hands in there in what we've given them kind of
Sure.
authority
What do you
to
think, Snowden?
Does that sound okay?
She's looking for some definitive answers.
She wants some specifics a little bit.
I will tell you, you will get pushback from Troy because he really wants to do the parade. And I happen to agree with your idea, but I'm one person. I can't speak for Paul. I think, I'm not sure what he'll say. Our next meeting is February the 2nd at 10 o'clock at the Alexian Inn. It is open to the public. We encourage, try to get council members to attend as well. I would encourage y'all to attend, and we could, I know it's another meeting for you guys. I totally understand how many meetings you have. So if you could come and we could discuss it there when the committee is there, that would be most.
But we can't discuss it in that.
Discuss it
Not unless
Yeah.
it's
Public.
advertised as a public, but it would have to be,
as a public meeting.
it would have to be advertised as a council meeting.
Yeah, and I can't.
We can still advertise it, though. in
Can,
case two
can we
people come
give the committee direction to try to work it, like, the preference is what I'm hearing of the council is to do it in July. That's the preference of the council. So if you get pushback and they're wanting direction, are we all in agreement in that? That we would prefer to have a
Yeah.
bigger firework display and have it in July? So that will be your direction, and then if you get continued feedback, maybe come back to us and we can give you further direction. But I don't want to get in the business of micromanaging the committee, and I feel like we're
Right,
teetering on that.
but we have to be sensitive to what Snowda's saying, is that she took something on when it should already have legs. And so, and she's not getting a lot of support, and she doesn't want to be the Centennial czar that
Right.
makes all the decisions and has all the money. So they really do need some specific direction.
Well,
from us as much as
that's why I'm asking you. Does that give you enough direction, or do you need more from us?
I think
Because
that-
I'm happy to push whatever it is you need our help in. I'm just
Right.
trying to make sure I understand.
Where we need our most help is in kind of fine details. I mean, we kind of had this all laid out, and we're going with that. I mean, we really kind of scaled things down and planned it for these 10 days. And I think it's honestly because people were so burned out. It's like, let's just get it over with. I'm just being honest with you. People are like, just get it done. We've worked on this for 3 years and nothing's gotten done. And myself and a few people were brought in last night to help, and I think people are just burned out. And I will go back with this. I personally think this is a great idea because of the weather and other things, and to make it last throughout the year. Let me talk to them, and we'll see what happens. I think from an expense point of view, it might be a little bit cheaper. And we can
Yeah.
stay on the budget.
Bob, does it bother you or anybody, if I talk to Troy, I'd like to find out what his concerns are.
No, I think input's important.
Okay.
And I think too, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody at the table, Bob is the liaison, so I know, like, when it comes to rec and stuff like that, I can talk with Jared and give him direction, and so maybe that might open up some communication for you as well, that Bob can give direction on behalf of the council, right? As far as the Centennial?
What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, that is a big evolution, changing those dates here in the last 20 minutes. And so I'm just mulling some things over myself. So, I can't give you anything definitive other than we have a new option now.
Right. And Paul and I were aware of this. We've actually already had this discussion. And so it's new.
I think I can sum up a little bit what Amy's saying. If I'm wrong, tell me. We do not want to chase you off. We're really glad to have you doing what you're doing. Yeah, you are very much appreciated in this thing, yeah. And we want to help, but not micromanage.
Right, and I think, Bob, as you mull things over, if before the next council meeting, because I know it, we meet every 2 weeks, and that's hard for you, Bob is available as your liaison that can probably give you direction in a quicker manner than you having to come here and sit down and then go back, and that burns you out. That was my point. But, all right.
And we're firm on the kickoff event. So we'll continue with
It's inside.
filling that in. Okay.
All right? You don't. Let us know if we approach any of those things, Snowda. All right, thank you, Snowda. Next, we move on to a discussion about library expansion. So if Karen Glendinning will come to the table with the interesting spelling of K-R-I-N, if you ever write her. Your autocorrect will always change it, but you always have to change it back.
In your package, you guys got some conceptual drawings. The library board is interested in pursuing an expansion to the library. What you have is their desired basic design. Obviously, this would require full architectural design and so forth. And this is very early in the process, but this is kind of how we approached the last project for the library, for the renovations of the downstairs. As I understand it, and Karen can speak to it further, but the desire is to engage the Library Foundation for fundraising. At this point, there's not a particular ask of the town in terms of funding. Obviously, those discussions will come in more detail, but at this point, since it is still a town property, even though the library board has far more autonomy and authority than any of our other boards, the town does own the property, and they're really asking for some guidance in terms of just general support for the project before they move forward. And with that, I'll let Karen fill in any of the other blanks that she can.
I just wanted to ask y'all for approval to begin the process of forming a fundraising campaign for this edition.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah, so it's not a financial commitment of anything on the council's part at this point.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Is it something that we,
I think that would be
you wanna-
good to have a vote on, and I can,
Clarify the motion, Clerk. Are you making a motion to support the approval to start fundraising campaign?
Correct.
all right, discussion?
I think they need it.
It's also, just so that everybody knows, the library's 50th anniversary is 2020. So it's a great time to start it, and there's no specific timeline. They have to find out how the fundraising goes. And this is just to get it going because the town actually owns the building, as Boyd said, even though the library board has more autonomy.
So I'll tell you some of the reasons why we want to do it, if you'd like. We need an elevator for handicapped and older patrons, and this would be part of the expansion. We need to provide a quieter space for study and research for people. The addition of the over the back patio would allow us to have activities going on there even if it's raining. And this is something we could really use when we have the summer reading program with children. We could use that area to be covered. And the town's growing population means a steady increase in our usage, and we just feel like we need these added services for our patrons. The room that we'd like to build would be situated so that there'd be a line of sight from the checkout desk, so that we would necessitate having to hire additional employees to have oversight of that room. And we would have doors from the main part of the library into the reading room, which could be closed if we had to have a special meeting in there. there'd be a space that we could do that. Right now, we are, on our renovated lower level, we are having more and more things going on, more classes, more tutoring, more public meetings and programs. So we really do need an area that's designed for quiet study and reading, but that could also be converted and used for a meeting if necessary, and still be closed off from the regular part of the library.
And I had discussion with Annette about just the logistics and dynamics of how the project would work, and I think there'll likely be agreement from the library board that we would handle it the same way we did as a lower level renovation. So they will raise the funds and then donate those funds to the town, and we would manage the project like we do any of the others. So with that being said, we have the exact model we need to move forward. We can do another agreement with the Library Foundation that says you can raise money for this project, and here are the parameters, and here's what we'll do. So it is really pretty straightforward scenario because we've been there before.
All right, the library, I'm the liaison and on the board. It's a little bit different because of the way that board works, but Karen and all the folks at the library are providing a tremendous service, and it's obvious because it's used. It's one of our most active community centers that we have, where people are in and out of there every day. So it's exciting to see you doing this, and we look forward to seeing how it develops, and good luck on fundraising. And if back in my days in public radio, it was good sometimes. And we all have different contacts, especially as you're going for corporate donations, to ask people to help. I mean, ask us to help when the fundraising starts. That's what we're here for. All right, do we want to vote? All those, I'm going to go ahead, just read it to be clear.
Well, I just really restated it, but basically there's a motion to approve the Library Foundation to start a fundraising campaign. Is that correct?
I think you need to say for building renovation, because
Expansion.
for an expansion, yeah.
For a building expansion? Okay. Or did you want to say renovation?
No, it's expansion, yeah. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 5-0.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Boyd will take this one and call anybody if he needs to. Tennis court repairs, available capital projects funding.
As you guys know, we have been trying for some time to get the upper tennis courts repaired. The subgrade has been undermined, cracks and sinks, and we've repaired it. We actually had some engineering done, and basically said it needs to be rebuilt. We had some
Upper and lower?
upper court.
The lower does not have to be rebuilt.
No, these are just the two courts on the very upper level. So we had some preliminary estimates on that and budgeted accordingly. We let the bids once, talked to several contractors, ultimately got 0 bids submitted. We went back out, advertised again, took some additional avenues towards trying to generate some interest. We had, I believe, 7 contractors come for a mandatory pre-bid meeting. When it was all said and done, we got 1 bid. And that bid, our budget for that project is $90,000. The bid is $170,000. So that is one aspect of the discussion, but it really provided an opportunity to have a discussion that we need to have, and I would like to have in connection with that, and that's really some options we have for some of our major capital projects. We have 2 loans. One we got for the Public Works facility, and that was written and we have pretty broad latitude on what we can use that for. Any existing facilities, we can do renovations, improvements, repairs, and so forth. The second loan we got was specifically for the fire station to try to keep that as much, as segregated as much as possible. On that original loan, we plan to use part of that for the fire station. If some of you will recall, anyway, we budgeted for the fire station, and that included a 10% contingency. When it was all said and done, we came in under the actual contract amount and didn't have to touch that 10% contingency.
What does that equate to in dollars?
I can give you a bottom line where we end up. And that is that on that first loan, we're pretty much everything that we were planning to do with that funding, we've done. And now we're
On the
at.
public works facility loan, or you're still
Yes.
on the fire? Okay.
No, public
Because you
facility.
switched.
Yes. So anyway, on that loan, we have about $500,000 available. Now, we budget and will be paying debt service as if we've drawn that full amount down. So how that will work is basically we would ultimately pay it off a little sooner if we don't draw that down. But I thought it was important that the council understand that we do have that mechanism available. When we looked at some of these major projects and the impact it's having on our fund balance, and perhaps determine if we want to utilize those funds for some of these major projects, such as the MAC. Do we want to move forward with these repairs to the tennis courts, even though the cost is significantly higher than the estimates we originally got? All of these things tie together, so I wanted to take this opportunity to have that discussion and, flush out how we might approach some of these major projects. And it may not change. We've looked at fund balance for some pretty significant funds, and if that's where we end up, that is. But we do have this other mechanism that's never been discussed.
That's a great idea.
That's a good idea.
You're not going to like this. Question.
How do you know?
Because I'm guessing. But 1 out of 7 responses just seems like there's got to be some way to get a better response than that. And I don't know what it is.
We got 100% better response than we did the first time.
I agree.
So will we have that same luck the third time? I don't know. But it's not that I'm not going to like it. I've had the exact same. Do we take another run at this to try to get a better scenario for the town and the tax dollars? It's a very viable question, or it's a very viable option. How successful it will be, I don't know. But the pressure we get and are getting, and we've thought of other things too, because a lot of the pressure is from the high school.
Oh, I know. They have tournaments.
And we allow them to use these courts. We've actually looked at the possibility of looking at the courts behind the country club. Could we do something to expand them for this same amount of money and provide the high school with a better scenario, where they are in a
Better
place where they
parking.
have more parking, they might have restrooms. So I don't dislike any of these discussions, because that's our
So-
job.
I'd love to hear that one fleshed out a little bit, about the pros and cons of that idea. But if we had this hill and before we bid it, we said, these things are just dangerous, we removed them, and there was just the hill there, would it cost us $175,000 to get 2 tennis courts put in?
If we did the demolition, no, probably not. Now, what impact that would have, I don't know.
Can we put something else there if we're gonna fix up the tennis court? Like,
Yeah, there's a possibility, yeah.
horribly.
Yeah.
One of the issues that we have is this the tennis courts, the swimming pool, ball fields, they were all done with an LPRF grant like we're getting for Marion and Driver. So they have to remain
Sports, but not.
those fields. Now, if we put other tennis courts somewhere else, then they may allow us to reutilize this space. But there has to be.
It has to say tennis courts?
We can't reduce the number of tennis courts that we have. If we lose 2 here, we're probably gonna have to build 2 somewhere else, which is maybe not a bad idea. But it was interesting, a while back, I was trying to find the deed for this property, and we couldn't find it for quite a while. And then we actually did, because it was filed under recreation complex, because that's how this whole property started. And those grants that were used to develop those sports facilities stipulate, and there are restrictions on the deed that says that's how it has to be used. The only alternative is to propose a replacement somewhere else, and then some of that might be removed.
So was there a conclusion that said there's no way you do the house behind the country club?
No, there hasn't been. I mean, January 18th is when we got these in.
When does spring tennis start?
Late February, about a little less than a month now.
So it's not going to be done for that, no matter what we do.
No.
There's no way.
And again, just for the record, that is not for the lack of trying.
No,
This is the second time through, and and I know Sam engaged a lot on this last one, Jared as well, and tried to drum up as much interest. And again, we had 7 contractors here and a lot of times when you have a mandatory pre-bid meeting, that in and of itself will kind of thin the field. When we had 7 contractors show up, we were thrilled. And then, poof.
Can we direct staff to pursue a tennis complex, improving what we have behind the country club and perhaps adding there, since that's our property?
If by
that's
staff
level?
you mean me, yes.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Yes.
Jared's here, so do you mind me asking Jared to weigh in on it? What are your thoughts? Sorry to put you on the spot, but.
Thoughts on keeping them up here?
Yeah, what,
You know, I talked with Bo and Chief Mitchell, and I've talked to the tennis league as well. Tennis league, middle high school, they have to have 6 courts because of the number of kids that come up here and play. And then they'll use the overflow behind the country club. So 6 half dozen the other. You know, if we kept them here, and the whole point of this is we're kind of stuck because the league, the tennis team, they start in February. They wrap up late April, early May, and that gives us that May and June window for the end of the fiscal year to get the project completed, because then right when the school year starts, they have the fall league, so there's just this real small window to get this done. So if we looked into putting them over behind the country club, you're going to lose the basketball court, and you're going to lose the free play area. You get a lot of toddlers that are there with their parents riding their bikes and scooters around, stuff like that. So.
But this could be a free play area.
When the high school was being built, at one time, I thought that they were going to put tennis court.
And when Dr. Dressler was still up here, I met with him and a couple individuals at the high school, and they just said they didn't want to deal with the tennis court at that point in time.
Right.
Financially, they didn't want to have to deal with it. Because Dr. Dressler was going to put forward a considerable amount of money to get that project going, and they basically said we're not interested in that right now.
Well, this is our issue to solve now, I mean, for what we have. And we aren't going to fix it before February.
So basically, we've got 4 courts right now. The upper 2 courts they're in bad shape. You know, they can't even be used right now.
And my concern is kind of like what happened with the MAC. If the longer we wait, is it going to be more money to fix them, or they just kind of stay in their state?
These going to,
gone.
they're completely, remove them, redo the subgrade, rebuild them. It's complete
Right.
rebuild.
We've had these two resurfaced, the bottom court
Yeah.
and the middle court, a handful of years back, we got a donation, we had those two resurfaced. So they've got a couple superficial cracks that we have fixed every year. The
That
upper
one's
set-
split in the middle.
The upper set, I mean, they're,
Yeah, it's out.
So how long would the process take to do what you're suggesting?
Well, I think it's just a matter of, it depends on how long it takes staff to find out, but if we can't fix it before February, which we can't,
Right,
because
no, I
it's
get it.
February, if we can get all the information we can as quickly as we can to start moving for a solution that we work on in that window, then that sets us up for having this corrected by fall, which is the best we can do. I mean, I don't think for a second if we said today, even though we wouldn't even do it today, that we're going to hire this one contractor and that we were going to take the money out of the loan that we have for the Public Works building, that it would be done quickly anyway.
No, I don't think, we're not going to have it done ahead of this season.
Right.
The idea would be to have it set and ready so that once this season's over and before summer really hits.
I think that was the problem we ran into last year. We wanted to kind of get ahead of the game this year and get the bid process out
Sure.
early, because once we roll into March, April, spring and early summer, these contractors have their hands full with big-time paving projects, and they don't even want to deal with it.
That's-
So
that's-
we're trying to get on the books.
Yeah, and we're still competing with the same scenarios we had before. These are the same contractors that do
Right.
road work and major construction things, and nobody really needs work. So if you can get a bid, you're gonna pay.
Yeah, but you wouldn't, just because you got a bid, pay to do something that wouldn't be the best solution.
No.
Without fully
Well,
looking
that
at
goes
another
without saying.
possible solution. That's what I'm saying is, that's just one more data point that we could have when we make a decision, maybe even in a couple of weeks, to bid that as well. Other thoughts?
Do we have like a sports facilities, like master plan or
Nope.
anything? I mean,
That's kind of what we're,
I feel like we're sort of dealing with a symptom here that probably is prevalent in a lot of other fields. I know that
Yes.
Driver Field and, what's the other one that's getting, we got the grant?
Marion?
Marion Driver.
Marion Fields are both going to be worked on, but I think it would be worthwhile to kind of look at, in the broad sense and in the, future sense, like, where are we going? Does it make sense to spend $150,000 renovating a couple of tennis courts when maybe, in the next 10 or 15 years, we may want to really, this may become a sports complex, who knows? And we've spent all this money to renovate. And I'm not saying it's not a good idea, because I know we have a critical need for adequate facilities for our current sports teams up here.
Sure.
So,
Well, we're going to have an
I'm just
opportunity, and this will probably come up as we go into the budget session, to meet with all the department heads. That's coming up. And if we can get some reporting from the department heads about what they see as the needs are within their departments, then we as a council can start to work on the process of some long-range strategic planning. So I think we're just at the beginning of that, and if we have our ears and eyes open to that during that entire process, that's how we begin it, but. Go ahead.
But we do have a plan in that's how this is on the radar, and that's how the sprinkler system in the gym's on the radar. That's how HVAC for the gym is in the budget. So, but it's part of our whole facilities plan. And every year we look at what's on the list, what's come up that's not on the list, where that needs to be plugged in. So, is there one specific to just rec fields? No, but there's a facilities maintenance process that we look at and determine what needs to be done. And each year then we look at what funds are available to attack it.
yeah. It's kind of like putting a puzzle together.
Yeah.
Is the
And
basketball?
But it's our, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask if the basketball court is being utilized over at the club a lot.
Quite a bit. When the weather, even when we have a nice warm snap in the winter months, it's loaded up with, like I said, little kids on their bicycles, guys, dads and sons out there.
That's
playing.
what I see most of the time, is
Yeah.
toddlers learning to ride their bikes. Yeah, it's a great spot.
And look, and actually that facility over there right now, I think you mentioned lacrosse earlier, that's their home
Yeah.
field at times. They play on the tennis courts. 'Cause I don't have any more green
it's
space
just-
to stick
it's-
anywhere.
Sad.
It's terrible.
There, I don't disagree with anything Boyd said, but I know that I don't know enough as a council member to be able to talk strategically about what's happening about that plan. And that's not on him, that's on us to find out. And so we have to start doing this and asking more questions and learning more about the overall plan. I didn't know that you were bidding that out, and I wouldn't have if a neighbor hadn't said, hey, what are we going to do? You know, the kids are going to be playing tennis starting in February. We have tournaments. What are we going to do about it? And I wrote Boyd, and Boyd said, just so happens that the bids, I think, was going out just a day or two after that. Well, as a council member, I didn't know that. And I didn't know that because we haven't had reasons to ask those questions. And so building a strategic plan causes us to do that and maybe get more reference. That's what we're...
What was the ideal situation for you if the money was available? Would you prefer,
You know, I think in a perfect world, probably over at the country club, biggest thing's parking. When you have events up here and you know, God forbid it's court night or something like that, you know, they take over.
Swimming tournament.
Yeah, and you get swim going, you know,
Yeah.
it's just, this place becomes just a huge, just a cluster. So parking would be better over there. The only thing I would like to see is that, you know, if we did transition that into 6 courts, that we had somewhere else to put that basketball court, that open area for kids, so we didn't lose that.
So what do we want to do?
My preference is to ask Boyd to look into the possibility of moving the tennis complex as the first step to see, put together what it would take to get bids, I guess, to make that be 6, right?
Just have to look at space, see what we can fit in over there. I don't think we're going to get any more courts over there, but we might
We
get,
measured it. You can have your 6 courts over there, but you're not going to have.
that's going to be about it.
And that's all we need though, right? So if we put 6 courts at the country club, then we can do something with the current courts, which we would have to tear down anyway. Or the
Only the
top,
top.
the upper
Only the
ones,
top.
the upper ones.
So,
Yeah, the other one could stay a play and basketball area. It's already fenced in. I mean,
Okay.
it's already...
And we can investigate what the requirements would be relative to the grant and all that.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Thank you, Jared.
Before we move on, and it's something we can address in more detail, but again, ask council to give some consideration as to how we fund some of the other existing. And what I don't really want to see is the fact that we have that funding mechanism there drive additional things, but we have a lot of costly projects in the mix right now, and we have that funding mechanism. So give that some thought as we move forward, and we have further discussion on that in terms of leading into budget and where ultimately our fund balance will be. Thank you.
As we do that on projects like a tennis court, it would be nice to always at least have on the table that, all right, so you do this now, this costs X amount of dollars, it should last for this many years. And I think the things that you put on a loan, sometimes it makes more sense because the cost is spread generationally. It's
Right.
another one of those things that, those expenses you tend to look at that way as opposed to some things you wouldn't look at like that.
Correct.
All right, let's move on to bleacher shade proposal. I have no idea what this is.
Speaking of new things, you have 4 sheets. and none of them really are easy to wrap your head around if you don't know what you're looking at, but these are the primary ones that we'll be talking about. The Signal Mountain Youth Baseball League has proposed that they would like to fund purchasing these shades for the bleachers at the ball fields down here. They also looked at the same time, they were looking at a large roof structure to go over the new batting cages, and that's why there's some other stuff in here that's marked off. That's not something they want to pursue right now, but on the price sheet, you have, it shows that they're looking at about $19,000. They've offered, theoretically, they still are meeting with their board. They're getting new officers in place, so it's not absolute, but they feel fairly confident that ultimately they would offer to donate $20,000 to the town to make this purchase if the town would be willing to facilitate the installation. And that looks like it would be in the neighborhood of $13,000, and there's probably some shipping and stuff that would be associated with it as well. But basically, Jared, did you
I
get
was
any?
trying to catch you earlier. I finally got a hold of Bob this morning, and the recreational, Superior Recreational gave that quote. They were bought by Game Time, so they're under the umbrella of Game Time. In turn, they're part of the U.S. Communities, and Bob said he can give us the play-at-home discount grant and probably knock a little bit off that bottom line as well.
Okay. So
What
my
do you
main
need from
question, I'm sorry?
Yeah, what do you need from us?
Was if this equipment was on the U.S. Communities, which is a purchasing cooperative that we buy off of, which means we don't have to put it out to bid. It's already been bid. State of Tennessee has recognized that as having an appropriate process, so we're allowed to purchase off of that, so we can. Again, this is not an item that's budgeted, but we do have funds in our facilities budget in capital projects that we could move forward with this if council is in agreement and if there's acknowledgement that it ultimately would be a budget amendment to account for these funds. But and there would ultimately be a resolution associated with it. This is not a definitive decision, but as always, try to have a preliminary discussion before you get a resolution in front of you to approve a purchase.
We would have to buy it, and they would have to reimburse us?
They would donate $20,000 to the town, and we would use that $20,000 plus additional funds to make the purchase and have them installed.
When will they make that decision?
Their new board, the next couple of weeks, about the next week, they should have their new board set. So once that new board's established, then they can give the final okay.
And we would have to have a document that says we are willing to accept that.
Right. It's very similar to what we did with the batting cages.
Okay.
They donated the funds to build the batting cages. We approved the funds to get the site work, get the concrete poured, and all of that. So we would have a resolution that, you know, a whereas they have donated this money to the town for this purpose, and whereas we agree to provide these funds to fund the additional costs of the project, then we would authorize the purchase that way.
Have they already raised the funds? Do you know that?
Yes,
Yes, they have it.
they have it.
So
Can we
if-
get this done before baseball season if it were approved?
Depending on how fast it was approved, I mean, I doubt it would be done by the start of baseball season, but definitely, you know.
Maybe by the summer,
That
maybe?
that would all depend on the company.
Yeah, by the summer.
Right.
And that was one of the main reasons we were looking at whether this was a U.S. Communities bid. If council approves it, we can place an order immediately, and the only question would be how quickly the company could do it.
So do we vote on this today? Is that the next step?
Wouldn't have to be a vote, that would be helpful, but basically, if the council is in agreement to move forward with this, then once we get
Right.
absolute word from the baseball league, probably at the regular meeting, we could have a resolution, which would be the formal approval.
So which would be at the 11th,
Right.
February 11th.
This is a no-brainer to me. I mean, they're willing to donate $20,000 to the town and asking from us a significant amount less. And this is very needed.
So would you like, we can give you a vote to move forward with this.
That would be helpful.
So how should we word that motion? The motion would be to accept, because it's not really the motion to accept the donation.
Right. To support
Assist.
the proposed project and authorizing me to move forward with the documentation, I think gets us there.
I think anytime our citizens and community members are willing to step up and donate, I think we have a duty to.
Be responsive to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 5-0.
Fabulous. I'm so excited about that. I don't even have kids that
Anything else
play
on that board?
anymore.
No, sir.
Next is Bike Trail Town Hall Complex.
Somewhat of a similar situation. We have a student from the high school.
Wait, Boyd? Yes. It is 12:15, or 2:15. We will pick up again at 2:20. Okay? You're welcome. Turn your mics off, everyone.
Especially if you go to the bathroom. We are still live streaming, and we want that to just be something electronic.
I've missed you so. I'm just so glad you're around again.
And I'm happy to be around again. And to still be above ground. And to still be above
Oh,
ground.
you and me both.
Yeah.
Everybody will move back to your seats. All right, let's start again because some other folks have other time obligations as well. We are reconvening, and Boyd, pick up where you left off. We're going to talk about the bike trail.
Okay. The high school student has their student project, and they're proposing to put some bike trails through the town complex here. All the trails in our parks, like Green Gorge and Rainbow Lake, bicycles are prohibited from there. So the idea is to look at a space where there aren't trails that might specifically be used for biking to expand the recreational offerings. In your package, you have a diagram that's a basic proposal for where the trails could go. And basically along the back of the tennis courts, down the hill from the library, and wrap around past the pool. And then there would be a loop that would go around near recycle. There are still some areas here that are probably gonna be problematic. I was talking to Jared, some kind of wet areas and all, but just in general, this is the proposition, and we look for council's position on allowing this type of project. Like any project like this, if they're installed, from what I understand, her dad is on the parks board now, and they are relatively experienced in building trails like this, so I'm fairly comfortable that they could do it properly. But regardless, once it's done, it'll be an additional facility for the town to maintain. So there's really just a desire to get council's input and feedback on the project, and you also have a memo that she provided. She was going to try to be here today, but ultimately had a test scheduled and wasn't able to come, so she sent a written memo to you.
What's her name again? Kamala?
Camilla, let me see how old.
Yeah.
Camilla?
So, Jared, isn't there already kind of a, like when you go behind the baseball fields to the pool, isn't that already kind of an area where the kids are to kind of take that shortcut?
Yeah, that area up there, there's some existing trails that they said they would like to use.
Right,
Fix
okay.
up a little bit and utilize those. So, yeah, out of this area, especially up there by the pool, I'd say, a good 20% of that is already there.
Laid out, yeah.
So I'm trying to remember how I was there. Ann Haygood, I was there, Loretta, Boyd, Cheryl Graham. Met with her and went through this and asked a ton of questions about things like that, where they're going to use an existing trail, how do you, because a lot of kids use those trails also as it is now. And they're going to put some signs up, and Boyd had some suggestions for places where there's maybe too much foot and car traffic where it had to move. This is a situation where you have a father and daughter that are basically saying, we're willing to go out there and do every foot of this project and cut the trail. It's pretty amazing.
It's ambitious.
Great.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And there will be some signs, and we'll have a little bit of expense for signage, I think, and those
I
kind of
know
things.
my son and his friends ride, they're getting to the age where they like to ride their bikes and ride on trails. And I think that it would be utilized by lots of people up here. I think it's a great contribution.
And I think that, this area where it's gonna be, it's really kind of brushy and overgrown, and probably help the health of the actual trees and stuff in there as well. And we've talked to them specifically about erosion control and all of those things as well, so.
No trees are taken. No trees are taken out. They're
I
going to
think
use
it's a
the
natural
existing
fit.
construct.
It is.
I mean, that's what I was saying. I remember I was asking my kids, because in the summer, they're all over the place, and I don't see them on Taft Highway, and they're like, oh, no, Mom, we cut through here. And I was like, really? So they already have this kind of as an option.
Between the sidewalk project over by the high school and the SMAC dog run and those are great reflections on our youth
Yeah,
to what they're doing.
very impressive. Okay.
Could this create any liability to the town if there's injury on the trail?
I don't think it's anything above what we already have. It's still a recreational use.
That's a good question.
Great.
I don't think what we will have to do is look for specific hazards, just like anything else. If you have trip or fall hazards, you have to address it. But if it's appropriate for the use, there's really not any other issues beyond what we already have with putting pools and everything else.
Now, would we have any type of, I don't want to say security, but, since primarily a lot of youth are going to be using that, and it's off the beaten path. Do we have any type of, like, do our officers go back there and kind of make a sweep? Do the town? Okay.
But I think as, you know, like right now, if kids were up in there, we probably wouldn't know it. But if they go in there and they clean this out and get the underbrush and all of that cleared out, it's gonna be a lot easier to see what's going on up there.
That's all I need to hear.
They do, they already have some. Yeah.
They'll be back there.
Yeah.
So do you need something saying that we support this project?
Similar to one of the prior, if we could just get a vote that you support and approve the project and allow staff to move forward with it, we will manage it from there.
I'll make a motion to approve the bike trail.
Second.
She's got it? She's got it, so. Do you need anything from us on wording? Are you good?
No,
She's got it. Any other discussion?
Just going back to the other project, is there any more movement on that dog run?
Well, I haven't heard back from them after the council meeting, some discussion. I think they're looking at some other alternative locations that would be better suited.
All right, if there's no further discussion, all those in, well, I'd like for you to read it, just so we can read.
What I picked up is that you were making a motion to approve the bike trail.
Yeah, the project,
Project, got it.
yeah, because it's not, I don't guess it's really solid exactly yet, as to, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries 5-0. Now, Boyd's going to talk to us about the budget process.
In very general terms, this year I would like to get back and do a more comprehensive presentation on the front end of the budget. We're going to be looking at where we are in regards to pay and things like that again. So a few years ago, we started off with a presentation that kind of illustrated where we are relative to other municipalities in terms of what percentage of our budget goes where and how we line up in terms of pay for our employees and all of that. So there's no objection. I'd like to start that process that way again. One of the main things that I wanted to touch on, since we have now changed our meeting schedule, originally when we set our budget calendar, we had April 26th, which was a Saturday, for our budget work session.
I cannot be there.
Those are generally all day.
When is that?
April 26th.
You said a Saturday?
It's a Friday.
Friday.
So that, if I said Saturday, I apologize. It's Friday, which would have been our normal work session day. So we've now moved our work session to fourth Monday. So we need to get direction.
I can't be there. I cannot be there the 26th.
So
I'll be out of town.
this is a separate meeting, I think, from the, it's not really a work session anymore. We're having two council meetings. And so this really is a work session. It's a budget work session. So we have to find a date.
So that would be like in addition to our
Yeah.
normally scheduled two meetings.
And this one really has to be all day.
Unless in April, we want to reschedule that second meeting. You could do that. And incorporate it, but that really is the question, what's the council's question?
And it truly is an all day.
I would
No way
say,
for it
I
to
would
not.
say that that would be a good idea to, that be the second meeting instead of having
And that's,
three.
knowing this far ahead, we can kind of shift agendas and try to keep things light. We'll address it, we have to address at that meeting, but otherwise we'll be dedicated to the budget. site meeting, of the responses I have, we don't have any dates that everybody's available. In a 3-week span, so I'll send those out maybe for the following 2 weeks. We'll push 2 weeks further out and send that out again. So do you want to do the same type of thing? Are you guys comfortable this far out from April, or?
We have a couple of options. One is since Amy can't do the 26th, we look at the 19th or the 3rd, or we look at what's going to be the regular Monday meeting and make that one be an all-day meeting. There is still, we do have the option of, according to our charter, you can have a meeting and suspend all of the regular items at that meeting. So we could suspend all the regular items and have it just be a budget meeting. But at that meeting, we would need to not have anything else that comes up. We can't vote on anything. It just needs to be budget.
You're saying that Monday?
Yeah, we could just do it on that Monday and have that. We have
What's
the
the date?
option of also having the regular things and still having the regular meeting at 6, but trying to have the budget done by then.
Of April?
Is when the regular meeting is currently. The 19th is a town holiday. That Friday before.
When
so
is spring
that's
break?
probably not.
End of March, right?
Yeah, it's the Centennial.
No, it's town holiday.
And the 22nd is the day after Easter.
Wait, are you in March? Or
I'm going to have to check my calendars. I won't be able to give you an answer.
Okay, so this doesn't
That's exactly why I
conflict, okay.
go ahead and bring it up, but we just shifted the meeting schedule and well in advance of trying to get this nailed down, I wanted to get you guys thinking about it.
Well, I can do the 22nd.
I can do the 22nd all day.
Anybody else have problems with just
What
making
is the
that be a-
22nd?
It's
Monday.
It's the day after Easter.
I have an appointment about 10:15 until noon that day, but it's open in the afternoon.
I actually have a 3 o'clock that day at the school. I mean, I could move that one if I needed to, but we can come and go for that if we have to. What do you think? Would that make you uncomfortable, Bill? Would you rather us try to schedule it where you can be there the whole day?
Well, if that
I-
day works best, I'll see if I can shift my appointment around.
I doubt I'm going to be able to shift much, but I'll check.
What, is there a day of the week that works better for you?
Well, I mean, the 26th is the Friday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Amy said she couldn't meet them.
I'm out of town.
And I really can't say anything at this meeting without much checking some schedules, because I'm going to be out of town too.
What do you want to do, sir?
I just asked everybody to look at that, and we can push back into that next week if we need to. We'll make it a little tight, but if we need to, we can do that. So if you guys will just look at your schedules, say from the 22nd through the 3rd, and let me know, and if you want me to put out a survey, I think, but.
Could we,
have a little bit of time.
could we talk about the 3rd right now, as a Friday? Would that,
May 3rd?
Yes.
Okay.
That doesn't work for me. May 3rd is out for me.
well, this is one we have to do.
Actually, I'd be free until 3, all day until 3.
Let's do all day until 3, because we're here. That is such a tedious meeting, and I say this and you know this. After so many hours, I think we don't become as productive. It's going to be more than one meeting.
Could
Everybody be willing to
start
push
earlier.
it about 8 o'clock?
Yeah, let's do 8 to 3.
That's great.
And that way you don't
Is
have
that
to,
good for you?
you can leave.
Can you try that one, Bob?
I'll try.
No, it's harder for you. All right, so this is
No, is that a,
Friday, May 3rd, 8
Friday.
a.m. here.
Right, Friday, May 5, 3. Oh, boy.
All right, moving on. Next one is MAC alcohol brown bag.
The folks from the Signal Mountain Elementary Preservation Fund have posed the question about whether it would be permissible to allow brown bagging at a concert or something like that. And presently, the answer, I believe, is no. There are probably means and mechanisms by which we can change that, but before we spent time and effort getting into all of that, I want to just, on the front end, get direction from council in terms of the comfort level of that. One of the things that I said in a hypothetical moving forward is that I would imagine the group or entity that's hosting the event will have to provide liability insurance and so forth, and I have gotten something from them that their existing liability insurance that we require them to have does exclude alcohol. So they may have to look at getting more specific insurance for those events. So that part at least has been discussed in theory, but the bottom line is we would have to make changes to our ordinances, and we would need to look at other regulations from the state and everything, so.
Can we toss in though, what's different about the MAC, the building, as opposed to if somebody was having a meeting here and wanted to be able to bring alcohol, is there isn't an exemption so that you couldn't do it here.
Correct.
We couldn't, like, as a board, we couldn't give them permission if somebody came here with a bartender. It can't happen. It can happen there because that's written into the ordinance.
Currently, you can have alcohol, but you have to have a licensed server, and that catering company generally is how it works, provides insurance coverage for their employees.
we've had functions there at the MAC with alcohol in the past?
Yes.
Yeah. And you,
When they've had, again, if they have a server there that's generally an employee of the licensed caterer that has the appropriate insurance.
And so this is different because they would be bringing their own and there's not a licensed server.
So the
Yeah.
only person that could assume the liability is whoever's having the event. Otherwise,
Okay.
the town's going to bear the responsibility because it's our property.
Can they, like, I'm trying to figure out, obviously I know the purpose, but can they charge, like, so if you go to Pastaria and you bring your own wine, you're charged a corkage fee. I'm trying to figure out a way to, like, I think this would be a great idea if we were able to do it for the MAC, but also try to generate funds.
yeah, in this case, they don't want to do this as a fundraiser because the concert itself is the fundraiser. And you have and these are small. They're making $1,000 an event. And to add, it's not like a concert it's not like Nightfall where people are standing around drinking. This really is, somebody wants to have a glass of wine while they watch a concert, which is a pretty common thing for people to do. So they're looking for a way to do that without needing to hire
A licensed
bartender,
caterer, okay,
yeah.
gotcha. I think it's a great, but, no.
You think it's what?
I think it's a great idea, I'm just not sure about from the liability aspect and,
Well, that's the thing, and that's why they looked at because they have insurance, they have to have insurance to do what they're doing anyway, but the insurance isn't clear enough.
And I think it speaks to when you have an insurance, a liability insurance policy that specifically excludes a particular liability, that speaks to the fact that we need to address that liability.
right.
Yeah, so it comes down to, if you have a bartender and they've gone through all the training and someone is drinking too much, it becomes the bartender becomes liable at some point if they continue to serve that person. And so there's no one who takes on that responsibility if someone brings their own. What's our solution to this?
Well, first, determine if council's leaning is to allow it if the
So you're going to draft a resolution or an ordinance?
Yeah, not really either. I think what we just say is, I like the wording, if the liability scenario can be overcome, are we okay with them doing that?
I am.
Is consensus okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Bill,
Oh, yes.
you okay? All right, next item. TCRS study.
You have in your packet a letter that, some of you were here. This process took quite a while. I had asked, the council to allow us to just get TCRS to look at the prospect. I worked here from 1983 to 88, prior to the town going to TCRS retirement. I came back right after they went to TCRS. So I wanted to look at, see what the cost would be to get credit for those prior years. In the process, they require that anybody that currently works here have the option to participate in that. So it turns out there was one other person that had prior service. The circumstances were different. He worked here after we went to TCRS, but ultimately he left. So there were two people that they looked at, and as you can see, they determined that the cost for establishing credit for those prior years to the town would be right at $95,000, which just absolutely blew my mind. Especially since when I started here as a police officer, I was making $5.75 an hour. So this is far, far and beyond anything I anticipated. And I've spoken with the other employee, and he was in the same boat. And I explained to him that it's just beyond anything I could ask this council to do with any semblance of a clear conscience. The cost was just astronomical based on what I anticipated. But since the council authorized the study, and the report has come in, and it did come in right ahead of the election, and the last thing I wanted to do was squeeze it through as folks were potentially going out, so we waited until this council was seated. And it is presented, but again, that's my position, that it is prohibitively costly. And I greatly appreciate the council even considering the prospect, but that's where we are.
If this was in place, what would this essentially give the employee?
Well, in my situation, it would mean that I would be eligible to retire now. When I came across from the police department, I changed retirement plans. If I had stayed as the police chief, I would have been eligible for full retirement actually last year. And I'm not planning to retire. I don't think I could afford to retire. But I can't really afford for folks to decide that they don't want me in this position any longer and not be able to retire. So I was really looking at this as a mechanism so that if some council decided that they wanted to make a change, I would have some safety net. And again, that's just not a reasonable cost to ask. So,
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation that it's so expensive. The other employee, it's two employees.
correct.
The other employee, what's the net effect of doing versus not doing?
Just years of service. That person is a firefighter, so they'll retire at age 60, so they would have additional years of service towards it.
How many?
I don't recall. There were a couple different periods, and I don't recall what the total additional service was. Mine was, right at 5 years.
So,
And they don't break this down as to how much of it is
Right.
one person, what's the other. It's an all or nothing, this is how you do it.
this is one of those things, if it was coming to us and there was no cost associated, there's no way that anybody would say, no, we don't want to do that for the employees. If it was $90,000, you gotta go, man, that's, so there's a point of, like, from no cost to $90,000, what would be reasonable in there? And I wonder if we shouldn't be, maybe within the personnel committee, taking a look at this and seeing if there are any other options that, you know,
Well,
that,
this really is it, that's the option.
it's it as far as that is concerned, but, oh. Yeah, I just,
Again, my position is, we did the study, and it is what it is, and I appreciate the effort on the council's part, but that's just, it just doesn't make sense.
doesn't make sense.
A couple of years back, we looked at changing one of our TCRS options, and it came back, it was so prohibitively expensive, it just wasn't possible to do. When you do catch-up, they don't make it easy.
They don't make it easy, yeah.
So are we tasked with turning it down officially or just not
No,
responding?
You would have to take formal action to approve it. And I'm not proposing that by any stretch. So, in effect, the report has come in, you've been made aware of it, and no action is necessary.
Any other discussion? Yeah, I mean, it's an uncomfortable situation where we could say, well, maybe we can talk about this later, but the fact is, this is basically done if we move on. And if it was an action on the part of the council that had caused harm, specific, I would be thinking differently about this, then we need to make whole whatever action we took. But that's not really what this is. Or am I missing it? Or on the part of a council? Or the government having done something incorrectly in the past?
No, there were similar scenarios, but they're different. When we went to TCRS, there were people in like scenarios, and they were provided credit for all of their service. But that's when the transition happened. I came in after the transition, so it is different.
And again, just to speak very bluntly about this, you knew the situation when you came in, one of those things. I mean, you weren't expecting,
When I came back,
I guess I know the whole history.
it was,
Were you expecting it to be different than what it was?
no. I came back and I started over.
Okay.
And it was years later, someone who I believe was a town manager at the time said, you need to know these scenarios were handled a little different.
Yeah.
That's fine. But they are different. They were here when the transition took place to TCRS. I was not. So, they're different.
Yeah, I hate that. Anybody else have any other say? All right, sorry about that.
I would have just let it drift off
I-
into space, except
Yeah. We needed to close it out.
council asked for it, and we
Yeah.
got it, and so I needed to put it out.
All right, thank you, Boyd. Board liaison reports.
Parks Board met on the 7th and discussed a survey of the Cumberland Trail as it traverses the Rainbow Lake Wilderness, and have that plotted. And there's also discussion on developing additional parking for Rainbow Lake because of the huge overflow on Ohio. We had a special called TPO meeting this Wednesday, primarily to discuss and approve by resolution the 2045 Regional Transportation Plan, which was approved unanimously. The bad news is we had a bike ped grant application, as did Walden. Walden's bike ped was from the shopping center to their town hall, and ours was from town hall to Piper's Path, wasn't it? And both of those grants were denied.
Oh, that's surprising.
Yeah. So next year we can reapply or apply for other things.
Both of those build off of the bike ped that we do have approved. Perhaps once that comes to fruition is in place, we'll have a little stronger case for building on, which is what both of those were based on. But hopefully our chances will get a little better.
And then finally, yesterday evening, the tree board met and discussed the timing of our tree giveaway, which was set for March 30th, the last Saturday in March. And we also talked about, since we're going into budget season, how we might include a line item for the tree board in our budget to allow them to provide better outreach, as well as printing flyers and things on best practices for pruning and that type of thing. And that would require no more than $5,000. If we could find a way to work that into the budget, I think it would really help the tree board get the word out better.
Is it traditional, do we ever have committees that have line items in the budget?
We do have funds there, like honor tree program and things like that. And we have funds at the park board. And when you say it's their budget, it wouldn't necessarily be. They would be able to ask us to purchase certain things or do certain things. But there are instances where there are funds set aside for specific things. This one would fall in Parks and Rec. We would have a line item specifically for tree board type purchases, but we would still make purchases on their behalf.
And that would also allow the board to bring in, when necessary, a certified arborist, especially with respect to town property, but to check on tree health or issues or pruning or whatever. And there's one fellow that's offered to do it on a gratis basis just to help us out, but if it gets deeper than that, if we need to take him for a site visit on a proposed new development, that would be charged out at somewhere, between 30 and 60 bucks an hour. But I wouldn't anticipate, heavy usage of the arborist or a need for that, but to have that resource available and know that, if we had to pay him, that there were some amount of funds available to do it.
So we can just add to, all budgets have line items like other contractual services or professional services. And we could add funds to that and then specify in the comments that 1,000 of that is set aside for an arborist or something like that. So we could build it into the budget.
So procedurally, the way for that to happen, I'm asking, not telling, would be, because as the liaison, it would be Bill bringing that in. It wouldn't be Jared bringing that from his department.
It could work either way.
Have you had any communication with Jared?
No, have not.
Yeah, so,
Except at the Parks Board.
yeah.
plan.
Any others
I haven't been, I'm going to a MAC board meeting
next week?
Tuesday. And I haven't been to a planning agency board, so.
Yeah.
I have not met.
Snowda gave part of the
Centennial, yeah.
the Centennial. I wanted to add to the tree board, Noah Long had asked that one of the trees to be replaced for the hickories that were cut down, the maples, to be, one of them be dedicated to his work. And so I would be asking the council that we would consider that.
The tree board probably needs to discuss that and maybe bring that as a recommendation.
And figure out what kind of tree
Yeah.
you want.
And maybe talk to Noah about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so the library, Karen did what was discussed, so that's good. All right, no more board liaison reports, managers report?
We've gone through most of what I've been dealing with the last couple of weeks between, especially the tennis courts and budget processing and so forth. One thing I wanted to update you on is Sam's been working on, he's taking the lead on, we talked about improving the monument down at, and a lot of people don't even know there's one there, at Coolidge Park, which is, as you start off the mountain to the left, there's what looks like a boulder, and it's actually a few rocks put together, and there's a small plaque. Sam, we've got approval through the state, we have now a portion of that right-of-way that's licensed to us for use. We've met with the, and you're welcome to jump in on anything else. Met with the Medal of Honor Heritage Group, and they're looking to provide the plaque for it. So we'll be getting quotes from somebody to do some stonework down there and put a fitting monument up to Mr. Coolidge's, our native son, who's a Medal of Honor winner. So we're really excited about getting that going. I think it'd be, we really want to move as quickly as possible. We would just really like to get this done before he's no longer.
Yeah.
We'll be moving forward with some haste with that, so, we're really excited about that. That's really the main thing that's come up in the last week.
All right, tentative agenda, February 11. What have we built? Well, I'll say, Boyd and I, we have, yeah. And Boyd and I are meeting, not the day after, but the day after, the day after, all the meetings now, just to go over what we talked about and make sure that we don't let things slip. Because every now and then we find that, discussion, somebody mentioned something here and there, just to make sure. And I don't know if maybe at some point that might turn into a report, that perhaps, because sometimes we we set ourselves up for things that we're going to do as council members as well at those meetings, so that we know what's on public record. Yeah, but maybe I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But anyway, we are meeting on a regular basis.
That would help me, and I also do look at, working through what I need to say, and then as we work through the agenda, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about that. So after a meeting like this, then we can sit down and kind of come up with those types of things. That'll help me get a little better information to you guys.
All right, moving on to other business. Anybody have an item? Just a couple of things as we're talking about strategic planning. I've been making a list, and you guys probably all have something similar of issues, of just town issues that you hear about. And I'm holding some of that stuff back for when we do the budget meetings, because we'll learn more, and some of those questions will be appropriate at that time. But one that I want to stay on, and we're still learning more about the web system, is I wouldn't have known if I hadn't talked to some folks when we took the 5-minute break. I'm surprised that we didn't have council packets out today.
Because we had them out for the last meeting, but we didn't have them for this. Can we just get that clear, that,
Well, it's with anything else, when you change and you start doing something new, sometimes that might be an oversight.
okay,
We hadn't done that in a very long time, and you're right, we did last meeting, and it was likely just an oversight, because it is something we have just started doing.
so it is the intent to have council packets out?
That was the
Yeah.
request.
Okay.
I'm not sure, I missed what is it that we're not getting or we are getting?
Packets, the packets that we have, and I looked into it a little bit. The citizens are supposed to be able to have a reasonable amount of time to look at the same things that we look at and negotiate. So things that we're making decisions on, they need to have been able to see them also at the time that we're seeing them.
But we're also looking at, this is my understanding, that if those are on the website,
Right.
that constitutes availability.
Right, so do we want to set up, a specific plan for staff to put those on the website? Or, because I know it's a pain, that's part of the problem, is the website's just a pain. If I need to do that, I can do that, but I want to be really careful about, when we started looking at the websites, as I told Sherry, I'm not going to change anything without checking in. I don't need to do that. So what do we want to do?
The last meeting you did that.
I did, and that was, we talked about, there was an experiment, yeah.
I think we should keep doing it.
I don't mind doing it, but I don't want to do anything where I'm preempting what, staff? You can do it, or you, but, yeah, I think so, but, yes. Sherry is saying she can do it if,
Over the last few weeks, this has really just been an evolution and an experiment. And you're right, we would have packets out, and the vast majority of the time they were picked up and they were put in recycle. And I think ultimately, and again, this was long ago, the decision was that they weren't being utilized and it wasn't practical, so at some point it was stopped. If that's what we need to do, we can do that, but if getting the packets on the website meets that requirement, then we can do that, so.
I think probably both.
This is the first time I think we've had this discussion as a group, so.
Yeah, that's the first time I remember hearing it.
Last meeting, and I don't think we thought anything about it, because, again, it hadn't been done for so long.
Okay.
How many packets are we talking about?
Did anyone even pick them up?
I don't recall last week.
Are you talking about putting 10 out or 100 or what are we talking
well,
about?
well, we don't know. The thing is, you don't know. And I think you probably need to do both. So you put it on the website, and then you put out a stack of packets, and if there aren't enough, then you'll find out there weren't enough. And if there's too many, you'll find out that there were too many. It's just, you can't, yeah. We're all in agreement here. We just want to make it work. And it's us doing what we're supposed to do for citizens so that everyone is informed and knows what's going on, and we don't create controversy that isn't necessary.
So we also discussed the difficulty in, the concept is that citizens have to have availability for everything we use. A lot of times I have a whole stack of stuff with me in case I need to refer to it, or, so you just never know what you're going to use, or if we're just talking about packets, that's a lot more manageable. Meeting Bill brought information from the TPO and passed that out, but we didn't know we would get ahead of time. So there's some things we just can't do, but if we're looking at just the basic package,
Right.
then that's manageable, and council's direction will be followed.
Sure. Well, so like Bill bringing that piece of paper, there was nothing that we, as council members, knew either. So we were all getting that information, and that information can be made available. Once it goes into record, it's available for everybody. But anything that we're going to deliberate, potentially vote on, that's the stuff that's on the agenda. And I think none of us would, like if we got something in other business, we wouldn't stop and have a vote on it anyway, then. It would be something that would go to the next meeting, and so then there's a chance for everybody to see it. So that covers all that.
Don't you think, though, that if it's on the website several days in advance, or as far in advance as you can, that people who are inclined, who want the material and are inclined to print it for their own use would do that. And, rather than killing a bunch of trees to print stuff that may or may not be used.
I have to agree that between you being on the email list and getting it generally through the email, specifically individuals who are on the, they get that then, and then it's available on the website, I would think that that would be sufficient. If there's a bare minimum of 5 or 10 copies out there, I don't know, maybe that would be a little backup, but outside of that, not for everybody in the meeting.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. If there's a few copies out there and, because that's all. All right. I'm stepping off of the soapbox now.
I've got Sparkle Days coming up. Last year we did it in March. We did it early as opposed to doing it closer to warmer weather because the leaves hide all the trash. So I don't have a calendar in front of me right now, but sometime mid-March we'd be doing Sparkle Day again. And one of the things that would be helpful is having more participation by the high school. So I didn't know if there was anyone over at the high school that could be a contact point for improving their participation. There's a lot of trash that gets generated, and in some cases it's from our own trash trucks because it will blow out. But again, with all the activities that are centered around the high school and Nolan, there does get an abundance of trash on Shackleford Ridge, more so than almost any other place on Sickle Mountain. So if there was some kind of liaison between the high school and trying to help coordinate for Sparkle Day, that would be helpful. And I have a contact. I haven't heard back from her, but I was just wanted to bring that up to let that. And we usually put some posters out that Sparkle Day's coming. And I think it was like the 23rd of last year, if I'm not mistaken, but somewhere in that time frame. That was. Is it also? Okay. And that's what we have historically done it on, is Saturday mornings. That was one issue. The other issue is since we have some new council people that could also perhaps recognize some of our youth for mayor for a minute. So if there's any names that come to mind, that would be something to also include maybe in one of our meetings coming up.
All right, any other business? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Move. Adjourn.